Test, test.
Ready to roll?
I think so. We're good. If you guys are.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Great. Okay, welcome everyone. Super glad to see all you folks out here, and welcome everybody online or who would be watching in the future. Thanks for checking in and weighing in on our dining services contract RFP that we're going through. I want to briefly introduce, we've got the RFP committee that is here, or at least mostly here. We have Kelly down front, we have Sam and Tyler, and then Chris will be watching later. She's on vacation, so we're glad that she gets a little downtime. And then, of course, Mackenzie, thank you for all your work putting this together. Just incredible job of helping coordinate and get this going. Thank you to the group for your overall work and commitment to helping us build the best next future dining services contract. And for those of you that showed up today, super glad you're here. We were looking forward to your feedback and your important thoughts and information so that we can look at this comprehensively as a campus of what we really see as our best next steps and our best next future. With that, I want to introduce Genuine Foods is here today, and so with that, let's give them a warm welcome from Eastern Oregon.
Good afternoon, everybody. If you can't hear us, please wave your hands, do something to let us know, because up here we sound great in our own heads. So please keep us updated. Like you guys had mentioned, we are Genuine Foods, so we're so thankful to be here today and really appreciate your time. I know it's afternoon. You know, we'll do our best to make sure we're not taking any more time than we need to from you guys. Our goal today is to just kind of introduce ourselves, talk about our program and what we are as a company, and then actually have a more robust question and answer period to kind of see, answer the questions that you have and maybe touch on some points of some issues that you may have had. So again, we want to hear from you. That's the priority. So our goal is to be quick and efficient and get to you guys and focus it around you. My name is Bob Dooley. I am one of the dietitians for Genuine Foods, as well as work with the business development and partnership team, as well as support our operations on the ground. I'm going to pass it over to Chef Phil.
Hi, everybody. Philip Hutton, Executive Chef for Higher Education of Genuine Foods.
That's it. Good afternoon. My name is Nick Bauer. I'm one of the regional directors that supports the local business here and all things program related. So, pass it off.
I thought we said to do like quick little bios, not just names. My name is Manny Mano. I'm the Vice President for Higher Education, so that means that all of the higher education accounts in Genuine Foods roll up to myself. Really quickly, because I'll do what we said, which is like kind of talk about the bios. I spent the last 20 years working for Aramark, so very well versed in higher education dining services. And within those 20 years, it was a combination of both operations and business development. So that kind of gives me a unique lens in terms of how I look at a hospitality program on campus. I can look at it from two different perspectives or two different angles. Been with Genuine Foods just about a year, and along with leading the operations team for higher education, I also oversee sales for the entire company. And one last thing is, really quickly want to say thank you to our chef from Chemeketa Community College, Rich Butler. Both he and Phil have been here for the past 2 days preparing all the food that's in front of you. And then before I sort of get into the spiel, I want to talk a little bit before Phil describes what's in front of you. Personally, I happen to live in an area that's very much like this. I live in a very rural agricultural area in upstate New York, and we were talking about really what we wanted to do for food. Because I've spent so many years in business development, I'm really keen with not doing a little bit of a dog and pony show and kind of demonstrating and showing some food that you might not see on campus. So we wanted to do something that resonated with the culture of who Eastern Oregon was, kind of aligns a little bit with the academic programs here at Eastern Oregon University. So it's sort of where we came up with this idea of an outdoor campfire themed snack that we have in front of you. So I'm going to let Chef Phil kind of go into detail a little bit more about what it is, how we've made it, how everything that you're really seeing for the most part is scratch made.
Thanks, Manny. Again, Philip Hutton, Executive Chef of Higher Education. So my background kind of runs the gambit of food service. Started off, restaurants, banquet halls, kind of your normal path. I think really a lot of the focus of my personal philosophy aligns with Genuine, and I'll get into this a little bit more, but in terms of the scratch cooking that Manny mentioned, what we have in front of you here, it's kind of a combination of what we really love to do as a company and integrate ourselves into the culture, as Manny mentioned, of where we operate. So a couple of things that we have on the table that represent that. Mukilteo coffee, which I know is used at the local coffee shop here in town. We stopped by there yesterday, had, I think Chef Rich had a latte, I had an espresso. Great blend. We decided to make it part of our program as a show of what we'd like to do as a company and partner with these folks and kind of bring what already exists here and already really does well here into our programming. The other thing we have on the table that represents this is Chef Mervin's Catering's chocolate chip cookies. So in doing research, his company quickly, I guess, made my eyes open in terms of what he likes to do with food presentation and how that kind of aligns with us. And again, in terms of partnering, we always look for what is successful, what represents the area, what can we integrate into our program, and have a good partnership with. A couple of other fun things we have here, and I'll start small and work our way up. In the small jars, Chef Rich and I came up with a grilling spice that really highlights the grilling nature of outdoor cooking, and it can be used both with produce-centric cooking, grilled onions, grilled mushrooms, grilled zucchini, those kinds of items, but also with proteins. I don't know anybody that doesn't love a good steak, those kinds of items. You probably are smelling that now because that actual spice we have on a little heated container down here to kind of get the aromas going. So, good stuff. The other item we have here is our s'mores kit. So, as much as we wanted to make our own chocolate, we can't compete with Hershey's, so Hershey's is in there. But what we did make was our own scratch marshmallow. And I think, again, to play on this grilling culture, we wanted to have something fun that you could take back and use at home. And to that point, we've also provided some portable camping stoves that you can skewer your marshmallow onto and roast at home whenever you want. So that's what we have on the table, and we hope you enjoy. Thank you, Manny. Yeah, so I can't believe I'm the one that made them, so I can't believe I forgot. We also have a scratch-made granola bar in there, and the focus of the granola bar is kind of high fats, something to sustain you for things like outdoor camping and hiking and those kinds of items. So we've got almonds, pepitas, we've also got some really nice dried fruits in there, dried dates, dried apricots, and of course cranberries, and it's an oatmeal-based granola bar. So please enjoy. Thank you.
All right, so here's the big question of the day. Who's heard of Genuine Foods? All right, thank you. At least we got the one, thank you. So that's what I expected. So I kind of just want to give you a little bit of a background before we really focus on EOU and the program. So we started in about 2016. We are what's known as a small but national company. We are sort of a boutique niche food service management company. We started in about 2016, and really the company itself was rooted. We sort of started at a DC public school system in K-12, and it was rooted about providing nutritionally dense food for impoverished communities. So essentially the philosophy was food does not have to be heat and serve for any student, regardless of age. And that when you provide nutritionally dense food, we actually did a case study that we saw, at least at the DC public schools, that when we increased the participation for breakfast for students, those students in those homeroom classes, their average test score increased. So there's lots of science-based data that says if you actually truly nourish your students, you can see improvements on the academic level. We are in 13 states, 14. We were just announced last week that we are entering a new account in Washington State, in downtown Seattle. So we are coast to coast. We are a national company, but we sort of have a nice regional little footprint. We like to say that we are the right size and the right fit for you. We do things very differently from some of our larger competitors. I think almost everybody up here has worked for one of those larger competitors at some point, so we kind of bring that perspective also, and many of us have come over to this company because we like the fact that we like to be nimble, agile, and entrepreneurial, not so much red tape to go through and really impact the actual communities that we serve. We customize and tailor every single solution. So again, because I've worked for Aramark and I know quite a bit about the other two larger companies, there is no cookie cutter approach at Genuine Foods. Everything that we design is 100% customized and tailored to the individual community. And we engage with our clients pretty regularly to make sure that we are staying on track with changing some of those programs as they deem necessary. We have a little north of 500 employees currently. We operate in both higher education, we also operate in K-12, we operate in healthcare, and we are also breaking into the senior living. So from a personal perspective, it's a very exciting company to work for. We are an emerging brand in the marketplace. We are becoming more well-known, and we hope that what we have to say to you resonates. So one of the big questions that we get when people say, hey, what is it about Genuine that makes you guys so special? As a former salesperson working for the big three, selling into colleges, universities, the question would always be like, you know, between the three of you, what's the difference, right? You all essentially have the same bells and whistles. It always really becomes about the team on the ground. As a salesperson, the three things that I realized that really stuck out with Genuine compared to the other big three, as we refer to them, really comes down to three buckets. One is this concept of redefining local. Essentially, when you work for one of the larger companies, they define local as 250 miles from the area where you're actually serving food, right? And that's based on a federal credit that you get for an ASHI Stars report at the higher. I'm sure many of you are aware of ASHI Stars. What we do is we've redefined that. We sort of source what we call hyper-locally. And the best way to describe that is if you go to the LeGrand Farmers Market, we're going to partner with those farmers and cultivators there, and we're going to bring their food to your campus community. We don't have a rigid supply chain that's difficult to break into. That is sort of one of the reasons why we are a niche boutique company, because we can embrace the community at a higher level than some of the others can. The second bucket would be this concept of nimble and agile. Essentially, we are a very flat organization, all right? So if you are somebody who is running an account, or a food service director, you are basically 2 management levels away from the CEO, all right? Nick reports to me as a director of operations, I report to the CEO, and account leader reports to Nick. And what that does is that gives us a tremendous ability to make quick decisions very quickly, not only based on changing circumstances, but trends that we're currently seeing on campus and in the industry. We don't have to go through 27 layers of management. And along with that is the third bucket, which is what I call the personal touch. And this is personal to me, not to kind of use a double entendre on the word personal, because I had so much experience kind of trying to sell into clients with larger organizations. Because we are a flat organization, there is not a single client nor prospective client, many of which would be in this room, that do not have access to everybody at the leadership level with Genuine, up to and including the CEO. The CEO is very actively involved in openings, transitions, client meetings. He would be here during campus, during opening. He would be on campus several times during the year to meet with Jeremy, to meet with other clients. So this philosophy of giving this personal touch to our client relationships that some of the larger companies cannot do is just really probably the most important thing that differentiates us from our competitors. Phil, you have a mic?
Thanks, Manny. So this is my favorite part. I love talking about food. Our philosophy, and you've heard Manny and I both touch on this thus far. Scratch made. So part of my own personal journey as a chef was working in restaurants, really, really nice places where we bring in all of our product in its rawest form, and we work with that product to eventually turn out a dish. Here at Genuine, that is what we do. It's not the most common practice with a lot of food service management companies anymore, but what we want to do and what we will do is we will do the harder, more difficult way. It is harder to bring in these ingredients in their rawest form, but the end result is better, so that's what we do. So our commitment to scratch cooking, as Chef Richard here could attest to, is that's what we do. You heard Manny talk about locally inspired. We've got the coffee here and a cookie from these two companies that we just did some basic research here. We would obviously invest more time in what is here and work with local farmers, local producers to work those into our program. That's what we do best. In terms of further development, research and development of concepts and food ideas, right? We obviously have a portfolio of things that we offer, but we don't ever stop developing. One of these things that we are developing ever more are foods for people and planet. Several concepts we have working right now where We're working with specific ingredients because of fiber content and the effect it has on the human body. You know, fiber is good for the body. Let's develop concepts that are fiber-centric, whether it's legumes or, you know, natural stated grains, etc. Food for planet. One of our scratch-made concepts is we bring in stalks of celery, right? It's common to break those celery knobs into sticks, essentially, throw away the ends, throw away the leaves. We don't do that. We do the harder way. We take these celery pieces that would normally go into the trash and we make stocks. These stocks are then what go into our soups, or they go into our rices before we put them into the oven to cook. So we use every single ingredient that comes into the house to produce the food. It's the right way. And then lastly, culture and context. Again, you heard me mention that we have a rather expansive portfolio of foods, and we do. What we realize is that food boredom is a thing. So we have lots of global concepts that we pull from, whether it's Indian or Asian inspired dishes or even regional American, right? We came here specifically thinking about the culture here. So our goal would be to develop menus and recipes and dishes that works well with the community here. All right, so dining program highlights. You heard me mention R&D. It's an ever-evolving machine. It just doesn't stop. Vegan and vegetarian dishes aren't just a niche sort of check-the-box process these days. People enjoy eating these ways, and so we're constantly developing dishes to reflect this enjoyment of eating. One, it expands our portfolio. Two, people don't feel left out when they come through our stations and they see, you know, a ton of protein-centric foods that they just can't consume. Oh, thank you. Culturally inclusive. You heard me mention our global mains concepts, right? So we've got over 30 concepts developed for specific flavor profiles throughout the world to, one, combat food boredom, but two, just to sort of, you know, keep people engaged with what we're doing, and of course, regionally as well. Allergies and menu labeling, of course. You heard me mention with the granola bars, we do have some nuts in there. So we're very transparent with what's in our food so that folks can understand what it is they're about to consume, but also we want to make sure that we're supplying what everybody needs no matter where they are on the food eating spectrum. Thanks. Dining hall programs. Okay, fun stuff. So you heard me mention some of the items that we have developed and ready to go. You can see the top row of concepts there. Genuine Greens, Wing Sauce and Loaded, Nona's, Steak and Whiz, Stacked Mile High. We have seen the dining facilities here, and we feel like, well, this would be a great opening plan. This is where we want to get started. Doesn't mean that this is written in stone, of course. Customer feedback, experiences, you know, 2 months of operating in a site. You learn a lot. You learn a lot about the folks that eat. We can change all of this, but we feel like that would be a great place to start in terms of those specific stations in our dining hall. The concepts on the bottom are representations of what you heard me mention earlier, global mains. I'm going to take a sip of water here real quick. Again, these concepts on the bottom are a small percentage of what we would offer to keep our stations fresh, to keep our offerings fresh, so that we can combat the food boredom, obviously, and just keep everybody engaged with the food program so that when the students come through, they actually enjoy the food. Retail program, so this is especially fun with a restaurant background. I've always loved working dinner services. It's the most fun, right? So we are thinking Buddy's Gourmet Burgers would be the perfect launch point concept for Max. Around Buddy's Gourmet Burgers, you can see a couple of other concepts that would work really well with late night and just general rotating concepts in general. Sabroso, which is kind of our, you know, Latin American cuisine. Everybody loves fried chicken, House of Fries, and Cheese Bowl. These are very engaging, and I would say probably some of our most popular concepts with college students, especially late at night, cramming for a test or whatever activities they're up to. But we feel like this would be a really nice opening program for Max.
All right, and I'm just going to tell you guys briefly about our goods market, or goods by genuine or genuine goods, however you want to phrase it. And that will be kind of what we would implement in Max Grill in the C-store style, the grab and go items. We'll of course, it'll still be Max Grill, similar style and layout. We don't need any sort of massive improvement there. But again, what our vision is to kind of improve the product line and make it, more focused around health and nutrition, which I'll get to in just a moment. But just some of the samples that we had are just up here to kind of show. And actually, what's important is that what we have out in front of you guys today are types of items that we would offer at Max Grill as a part of the Genuine Goods program. So, we would probably partner up with the local chefs that we talked about and actually offer these cookies. So this isn't something just for the show. This would be something that would be available for you guys to purchase or students to purchase at Max Grill with their flex dollars or exchanges or of that nature. We also would like to work to offer, again, maybe potentially s'more kits. Now, we may not have them all every day, but that might be something you can order ahead. So again, just offering more variety, kind of focusing on just higher quality, more nutritious, healthier foods. So we're just going to talk a little bit more about some of the dining program initiatives and, the things around just the food. It's really hard for us to put on paper. We believe that our food is superior to our competitors, especially the big three companies who take things out of a box, reheat them. Again, like Phil said, we do focus on scratch cooking. So what I'm going to kind of get into is a little bit more of the things that aren't just food related. So nutrition wellness, obviously, very important to me, myself. As well as kind of what we bring to our campuses and we kind of are really focused on as a company. This is just a sample of one of our dietitian consultants who I work with that when we are, if selected to be your partner, that we would work with to kind of create custom programming for your events. So whether that's, a nutrition pamphlet around going out into the woods for 3 days, like what to focus on. Again, those, high fat, that's not quality fat, quality protein. I wouldn't just say high fat. So things like that, creating customized programming for your school. And that's why I think it's really important. It's not going to be just, hey, me, Bob Dooley, makes one pamphlet for all of our campuses. We will specifically work with you guys on what your priorities are. If your track team wants to visit with us, we'll create programs around the track team or whatever else it might be. So again, hyper customization wellness programs, and then bringing in our own genuine lifestyles, which is, nutrition and wellness as well, which of course, if selected as your partner, we'd actually probably consider working with you guys and collaborating on a new program that involves the outdoors and maybe creating best practices, case studies that we can bring to the rest of our campuses. Again, it's one thing that what really intrigued us about Eastern Oregon is that aspect of you is it's one of the more outdoorsy campuses, and you're really proud of it, and you have programs based on it. So we would really like to partner with you to help build us programs and best practices to bring across the country. Again, food nutrition, and one thing that we have seen, and I don't know your campus well enough to know if food insecurity is a huge issue here, but it is something we see in a lot of our places that we serve and really is behind kind of the founding of Genuine. So one thing that we're really proud of is in 2022, we were actually awarded as one of the top companies by Business Inc. magazine for combating food insecurity. During the pandemic, we made over 1 million meals for families in need across the country, including on the West Coast, where we worked with Michelle Obama and the partnership with Healthier America on creating these programs and sourcing the food and making reusable meals, I guess. Easy to cook meals, almost like a Blue Apron, but simpler and way more affordable. And then again, distributing that nationwide, and something that we could look at maybe adapting for here for either to-go meals or potentially, again, pack-out meals for either athletics or outdoor adventure programs. I think that was it, yeah.
All right. I may get in trouble for this, but I do have to start. There's a smidgen of irony with how we started. Exactly. So he wanted me to talk more. Usually he spends his day getting me to talk less, so I do apologize about that. So I'm limited to 3 minutes. But sustainability. Obviously, that is a hyper-focus of most companies across the country. It's a very, obviously serious issue when we're talking about just sustainability impact in terms of just footprints. One of the things that Manny mentioned earlier that really gives us a lot of flexibility is the locality of what we're committed to. So when you're talking about 250 miles, you're talking about commute time, you're talking about distribution time. That's not something that we're necessarily bound to. So in terms of sustainability, we focus mainly on packaging. I think that becomes more the topic, but it becomes distribution, becomes travel, becomes gas, becomes obviously, you know, everything involved in that. So one of the things that, you know, we're obviously committed to is really just focusing on the local purveyors, local distribution, what's available to us, whether it's the farmer market down the street, whether it's the local coffee vendor. So that's something that we are definitely committed to. To give an example real quick, and I do have to ask, does anyone know what a sugar shack is? Right, I had no idea what it was. So one of our partners that's just south of Vermont, we utilize a local maple syrup vendor that, you know, cooks it in the back of his garage. Obviously, he's licensed, so it is reputable. But it just goes to show that our commitment is to supporting the community. It's not necessarily just to getting the best price, the most negotiable price, but it's really about supporting the community, the campus community, the state at large. So part of that is obviously, you know, focusing on vendors. I know I'm going over my 3 minutes, I'm sorry. Phil brought up a great point, and that's food utilization. So that is a very dire thing in our industry, is how do we responsibly utilize food, how do we produce food, and how do we manage the waste? So of that, I have two quick things, and Phil talked about one of them, that's resourcefulness. So if we're utilizing celery, carrots, onion scraps, we don't throw that away. That gets repurposed, that goes into a stock that then comes into a soup or comes into some type of sauce. So it gives us really a kind of a unilateral 360 usage rate, which is what we're always committed to, obviously, as a company. But it's just a responsible way that we approach production. Another aspect that we utilize is LeanPath. LeanPath is a food management system. It gives us the ability to track production. In that we input production amounts, waste amounts, so in the future it gives us more accurate production needs. So if we need 300 yields of A, B, and C, it actually tells us the specific amounts of what we need. So again, it's just another way for us to responsibly produce food for not just the students, but the campus community at large. I think that was under 3 minutes, Manny. Marketing and communication. Sorry, this is where I fail. I like to talk. So marketing and communication. So this is a huge avenue for us because one of our jobs is communicating the food program, communicating what we're serving, how we're serving, what the programs are, how we're relating to the student body and to the campus community. And that's all done through communication. So one of the benefits that we have, and Manny's talked about individuality, and that's the essence of what I'm going to talk about right now. We're not bound by a cookie cutter mentality or approach. So what I utilize at our other partner accounts is really what the demand is. How do we reach the student body? How do we reach the faculty, the campus community, whether it's through text, emails, social media. I mean, really the avenues are dependent on what resonates like that with the student body. So we do have a centralized marketing department that manages all of our content, but what we take from them is really what we need to deliver to the campus community. So, you know, what that provides is obviously consistency, communication, consistency in marketing, whether it's digital, hard copy, social. That's really what our team provides. One of the ways that we get a lot of our content from the students is whether it's a dining service committee, but we call it as genuinely gotta know, so there's some pun in there. And what that really is, it is a student-driven focus group that gives us the ability to step in front of the community, talk to them about the problems, talk to them about the opportunities, some successes. You know, it goes both ways. So we do that once a month. We rotate that every 6 months or so, but that's also dependent on the community. It's dependent on the student body. But that gives us really kind of a pulse of what's going on, you know, and how are we doing, what improvements being made, what menu changes may be, you know, ideal. But what it also gives us too is a sense of innovation. So we utilize that as a platform where if we're launching a new menu concept or Phil has a crazy idea that he wants to try, something like that, we utilize that as an opportunity to really start promoting those types of moments with the students and get that kind of that pulse survey, if you will. But that is our commitment. Obviously, not just being the producers, but really speaking to the community, understanding what the community needs are, and kind of just keeping our ears to the ground that way. And this kind of relates straight with marketing. We utilize a lot of programs and a lot of events to really just kind of get ourselves out into the community, enhance the program, enhance the experience for the students. One of our more popular programs is called Genuine Loves. And what Genuine Loves is a hyper-focused, hyper-individual, hyper-local program where it's designed to create moments, culinary-wise, that speak to the demographic, speak to the locality of the state. So we have one for each each state of the accounts that we're currently in. We do have one at Chemeketa, which I understand, I'm from the Northeast, or the Northwest, excuse me, so I understand that Western Oregon's a little bit different than Eastern Oregon, Western Washington, Eastern Washington, understand that. So our commitment is obviously creating monthly programming that speaks to the demographic, that speaks to the local agriculture, the local demands, the local needs, and really it's just to promote what it is that, obviously Eastern Oregon has to offer.
So really quickly, just a great example of what Genuine Loves is and how you actually witness that at the account level. So essentially, and we joke, Nick does talk a lot, but that's irregardless of this. But the reality is Genuine Loves celebrates culturally relevant food based on a regional demographic. So recently, well not recently, we've done quite a number of these events at Chemeketa in Salem, which still celebrates Oregon. And keep me honest here, guys, but we celebrated mushrooms one time by doing a mushroom panna cotta. We did a whole series of stuff with pumpkins, and I believe Chef Richard actually carved a 120-pound pumpkin, right, to use for a multitude of different areas. So these are monthly events that really just highlight the stuff that's really important to the local region. It's really just a celebration of local cuisine.
I don't feel like I talk too much, just for the record. That being said, catering, obviously, our programming goes outside of just the dining hall and goes outside of retail. Obviously, we understand that there's department needs, board needs, cabinet needs, and really, one of the benefits of one of our business partners is Catertrax, and I think Catertrax is currently being utilized here, which is a very functional and convenient platform for invoice processing, for ordering. And one of the benefits is also data keeping as well. So if you had commencement last year and you placed, an order, we can go back and replicate what that historical reference was. And that's just one of the benefits. Obviously, we want this to be the easiest transition potentially. And Catertrax is something that we're very familiar with. We partner with it at many of our other accounts. So. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. And not just that. So, I mean, obviously, we've all seen catering menus. We understand that at some point, if it's conference catering, conference services, you're going to see kind of a pamphlet. But also one of our benefits in, having a Chef Richard, having a Chef Phil, is the ability to personalize, customize. So if you are having a higher level function, we do have the ability to obviously, cater that to the function needs. So whether that is a, past hors d'oeuvre, whether that is a seated dinner. So we're not bound by any type of restrictions. Reality is that, we personalize the program to the demands that there are. And that obviously stretches to catering as well.
One last thing before we get to the next slide. So there's this whole concept within the hospitality industry, and that would encompass restaurants, food service management companies, and other. There's sort of these two factions, right? One is restaurant smart. So you go to a restaurant, you get an experience based on the hospitality that you see there. The other is corporate smart, which is really like, let me take my 4-ounce chicken thigh and turn that into a 3-ounce chicken thigh because that's going to make me much better on the bottom line. Most of us, if not all of us, really come from a restaurant background. And that is incredibly unique within the food service management company industry, especially when you get to a national company level. So we like to say that we really blend a combination of the two. You're going to get the same type of hospitality that you'll see at a restaurant, but you're also at least going to have the backing of a company that's going to provide some of the business expertise behind to make sure that we're hitting what we need to in terms of student satisfaction and that we are maintaining ourselves true to our actual mission, which really is rooted in hospitality. At the end of this, this is really just all about hospitality and treating people as if they sort of walk into their own living room when they come into our dining facilities. Yes, our founder did actually start a restaurant, yeah. Okay, so last thing here, some sort of custom outdoor events and products. Again, really just tying specifically to the culture of Eastern Oregon and what's important. So you have the s'mores kits in front of you. We think that would be a perfect item for OAP as people are going out, kayaking, camping, fishing. We would love to be part of that culture where we make these ahead of time and deliver them for them. We have the trail mix bars, which you have here. We think that would be a wonderful item that could be for sale in the convenience store portion of Max Grill. You have the Monty's Backyard Seasoning. That's a no-brainer. That's easy to make. That's easy to package and put on the shelf. And lastly, the regional coffee packs. These are all items that Bob mentioned that we would have available in the convenience store portion of Max. This is not just simply a demonstration of what we can do. This is what we will do. The last three things are just some examples of some like kind of cool out-of-the-box ideas that we like to do, especially when we have the opportunity to do things outdoors. So whether or not it's happening now, I'm not sure, but you know, a barbecue on the quad at Doherty Hall just makes a ton of sense, right? Doing some sort of Eastern Edge graduation celebration, tying sort of our mission and what we're rooted in with what the Eastern Edge value proposition is for EOU. And last but not least, just because I mentioned it, is it's always fun to do sort of like pumpkin carving contests in residential dining halls and giving students an incentive to kind of do things a little out of the box, give them some sort of a prize. Really quickly, that's the 120-pound pumpkin that Chef Richard carved for, I think, 3 or 4 different items across campus. And that's one of his pumpkins right there. So we're a little different. We're small, we're nimble, we're agile. We like to say that there's a reason that this company is managed by industry experts that decided to leave the larger organizations, because we really feel passionate about impacting the communities that we actually serve. That being said, that's our presentation. We wanted to save as much time as possible for QA and would love to hear your questions.
Perfect. I'll bring the mic out. We'll start here and then we'll get you back there next.
Thank you for the question, or thank you guys for the presentation. How many accounts do you guys have currently right now in Eastern Oregon?
In Eastern Oregon, this would be our first. We currently have, we operated 2 other campuses in the state of Oregon, but this would be the first one in Eastern. I will say, as a backup, because this type of question comes up all the time. We're a small emerging brand in the marketplace. People are hesitant sometimes to be the first. We generally break into somewhere between 2 to 3 new states per year. This year, or regions. This year is the first time we're breaking into Washington. We are probably breaking into both New Jersey and the state of Alabama, also within higher education. So there's something exciting about being on the ground floor of something that's pretty innovative. But to answer your question, nowhere in Eastern Oregon.
To that and the regional footprint, we've got Chemeketa. What else do you have within a 200-mile radius?
Within a 200-mile radius, we have, is Seattle 200 miles from here?
We'll call that good.
Yeah, so Seattle, Salem, if we potentially are selected here, this would be the 3rd in that area. We have, well, we got a pretty good presence on the coast of California as well.
Okay.
We are? Oh, okay, we're a finalist at a school in Portland. I didn't know that. All right.
Is that higher education? Those are all
Yes,
higher education?
Higher education.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of like the company itself, we have 120 different locations across those 14 states with 88 different client partners. But that would encompass higher education, healthcare, and K-12.
Hospitals too?
Yes, we have 1 healthcare account currently, but that is, again, we are a new company. That is, there's 2 areas of focus coming up as we continue to expand. One is healthcare, and then a subset of that is senior living. You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
I'm intrigued by the connections you were making to the OAP and how you could see yourself supporting them. I happen to be the person who runs the reimbursements for some of that.
Okay. Wonderful.
So currently, you know, OAP, which is our student services side, and the outdoor program, which is the academic side, people leading those trips or those classes, because you can take, you know, you can take a backpacking class where you get credit for that trip. The food is purchased by the individual leading the trip, and then it is reimbursed to that individual. And are you thinking along the lines of that might be something where you would partner with these people to create menus and create and basically do the food sourcing for them?
100%, yeah. I mean, again, just to kind of reference, my life outside of work is camping, fishing, hiking, backpacking, anything that involves the woods. I actually live in the Adirondacks, so, you know, culturally, it resonates. And when we were talking about all of this, I was actually the one that said, guys, this is an outdoor institution. We really need to focus on that. So any way that we can support something that's so important culturally, yes, we will create menus. We will create shelf-stable kits that could be sent when they're going out on trips. And again, that's part of the reason why we didn't want to do the, hey, here's a, you know, amuse-bouche and the dog and pony show and food. This is really what we would say. So short answer is yes, we would absolutely do that. Yep.
Great. Squeeze behind you.
Hi, I have a question from online. How do you manage gluten-free options and making sure there's available for every day? I know sometimes it's often put to the side.
Anybody? I mean, I'll take this. Phil, do you want to talk about it? We handle it a multitude of ways. So in a residential dining facility, we're going to have either a dedicated station or a dedicated area, not that different from how your current setup in the Mountie Cafe is. That's one way to handle it. Number two, if we could ever get to the point where we could actually isolate a station and put production facilities there itself, we would have a dedicated allergen-free station. Challenge with that, with a combined kitchen, is cross-contamination definitely exists. The third way that we handle that is, you know, we understand that there is stigma associated with trying to self-identify in a dining hall. So we would make sure, I don't know if it would be yourself that we would work with, but we would directly connect those students with our chef on campus to make sure that they have a relationship where, in a best case scenario, that student is actually texting that chef saying, I'm going to be in today at 12:30 for lunch. What can you make for me? That chef provides certain options, and then we execute that. Anything you want to add, Phil, or am I good?
Option 3 is my favorite just because I love the engagement and I think it gets us where we need to be, but that's
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So on the gluten-free question, is the bar in the kit gluten-free?
Yeah.
Okay. So just another question about how you guys kind of structure buying local. So like how often do you go out into the marketplace to buy your local items? Like weekly, daily, monthly?
So generally, we will work with a local food hub or a co-op that becomes an aggregator of local purveyors, and there's not a single state that we don't have a co-op or a food hub that we're currently working with.
Okay.
So yes, we will partner with those individual farmers and cultivators, but we generally do it through a food hub or a co-op.
And then do you have a chef at each one of your locations then that people with food allergies work with individually?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So like as an example, at Chemeketa, they're working with Chef Rich.
Okay.
I also have one of those food allergy questions.
Sure.
It sounds like that's something that you actually take seriously, but as far as the staff working the windows, how do you ensure that they know what is in things? Because it was really nice to be able to say, hey, what's in this? But what steps do you take for the person serving it to know what's in things?
So we actually have something known as FARE, F-A-R-E, allergen training. All of our hourly associates go through that, and then every single account that we have is going to have a ServSafe certified food protection manager. So basically, we handle it through training, which is the only effective way to do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trevor didn't want it.
Hi, hey, I've been on campus here for 3 years. I came from Western Washington. One thing I run into here in rural Oregon is staffing, finding qualified staffing. What are some of your options, ideas on how you're going to come up with qualified staff, and are you going to employ locally?
So I'll answer that in reverse order. Will we employ locally? Absolutely, 100%. How will we handle staffing? Generally speaking, I don't know how many people here have been part of a transition before, but usually 90 to 95% of the existing staff transition over to a new vendor coming in. They know the students by name, they know their preferences, they become our greatest ambassadors when we're on board. Staffing is a challenge for everybody. If anybody tells you they have a silver bullet solution, they are selling you snake oil, okay? It's a headwind that we've been facing since COVID. For us, the most important thing becomes the leader on the ground. That defines the culture and that defines the program. Fortunately for us, we actually have a few internal candidates that are willing to relocate to come out here that are pretty highly qualified. So it's a challenge. We have a talent acquisition team to address it. We've done some proactive recruitment internally for that number one, that food service director and chef manager, but it's something that we're always going to have to manage until automation takes over.
Great. Other questions? All right, get in here.
I have an actual question. That one just came up because of, yeah. So another thing that I do in my position is I handle a lot of catering orders, and I handle catering orders from I need a snack for this small group to I'm bringing 200 high school students on campus. One of the things that is super helpful to me, and I do use CaterTrax, is having a multitude of sort of mix and match options. When you put together a CaterTrax account, what kind of things do you put on there for, you know, I want a dozen of those granola bars and I want some coffee service and I'd like some fruit at this event. And how do you keep that fresh and engaging?
I'll take it. It's up to you guys. All right. So this kind of goes back to what Nick was saying is, yeah, we got menus. We have student drop-off menus. We have student pickup menus. We have simple lunch menus. You mentioned granola bars, and I sort of want to mix and match. All of those items are available a la carte, right? If it's just muffins that you're focused on, there'll be an option to order muffins by the half dozen or by the dozen. But the most successful catering is when you come to us and you say, I have 25 people, I have a budget of $250, and I'm looking to give them healthy breakfast before they go out backpacking. What can you do for me? We will then put together a menu that sort of hits what you're looking for, but it's the functionality is there to do it, but 90% of our caterings are that one-on-one unique collaboration. Does that answer your question? Okay, you're welcome.
Great. Other questions? Yep,
Yes, ma'am.
hold them.
I've been here for 20 years. I've been through Aramark and Sodexo. They seem very. I think it was Chartwells too at one time, or Cartwells or something. So they all seem very similar. Like their healthiest thing is the salad bar. Everything else seems to be processed. I would love to eat there every day, but I feel like the only thing that I like to eat is a salad bar. And sometimes it's not always fresh. So the lettuce looks a little wilty. So my question is if you guys get the contract, will you have somebody that's, you know, continually looking at the salad bar and refreshing it? And, you know, I mean, older people look at stuff like that. You know, a lot of staff that works here, students probably don't necessarily even pay attention, but like messy salad dressing that's all spilled all over the place to me is not presentable when I go to eat. And then the entrees are usually like processed chicken, or, I mean, I get that the students like macaroni and cheese and pizza, but not so much me. So will you kind of offer something more healthy than just a salad bar? I guess is what I'm wanting to know.
I'm gonna say one thing and I'm gonna pass it to Phil. So I'm glad that you mentioned those three. Try not to mention them by name, but you know, look, there's not much of a difference between the three of them. And for 20 years, I worked for one of them. And for almost 10 years, I was selling into colleges and universities. And I would get this question all the time. What's the difference? Regardless of what my answer was, the reality was there was no difference. It's the person on the ground. I think, number one, our scratch cooking philosophy differentiates us tremendously. I think we have a higher set of standards in terms of culinary. But in terms of like some of the details, this is Phil's wheelhouse. I'll let him talk about it.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a good one. There's a couple ways that we do this. One, Manny mentioned this earlier. We are a smaller company, so whoever these chefs are on the ground, as Richard can attest, they're talking to me almost every day. So when it comes to follow-up for food quality issues, they're not getting it just from the customer-facing side. They're also getting it from me in terms of these are the standards, these are what we uphold. Send me pictures of what we do have a system where everybody takes pictures of what they're serving that day. They put it into a system that we use, and everybody, all the way up to the CEO, has visibility of the food that's being served that day for that service. Everybody participates in this program. And to your point, everybody eats with their eyes first. And to your other point about menu versatility, essentially, I know we threw some concepts up there and spoke to it earlier, but it kind of ties in with catering menus as well. We have programming that exists. We have things that we can start with. We have formulas that we know will work, but customer feedback, client feedback, student feedback, all of these things help us develop new ideas and new things for our specific accounts individually. Identities here or any other account grow sort of organically from those. Catering menus might look one way in a week and they look completely different 2 weeks later because we've had conversations about what they need. Same with our dining hall menus. And look, scratch cooking, I hear you. Like, the last thing I want to do, and the last thing I really, honestly, Chef Richard does is open up a box, throw it in some sort of heating mechanism, and then get it out to the line. We bring in whole products, whole chickens, we break them down. Whatever parts we're using for whatever dishes, we use those parts, and make other dishes with the rest. So that really is our food philosophy, and it does show out on the line. With what I could go on forever, Manny, so cut me off at any point. But in terms of your concerns about food quality and if I'm hearing you correctly, also just items that are healthier, we absolutely have protein and produce-centric dishes that are good. I mentioned this earlier with specific allergen stations. It's not just allergies that we're worried about. We want to put out a good product no matter what it is. If it's a grain bowl, I want the grain bowl to be enjoyed by somebody who eats steaks 6 days a week. It's going to be a good product. So that's our general philosophy, and I think that shows with our menu innovation, keeping it fresh, taking your specific feedback into this, and applying that to our program.
I got one other comment about that. So I mentioned this concept of restaurant smart versus corporate smart. You go to a restaurant, you get that salad, you have wilted lettuce, are you going to go back? Probably not, right? So what you're seeing is a corporate smart decision in terms of how those programs are being run. That's not our philosophy. And to my point earlier, it's part of the reason why a lot of us left some of those big three and are now working for this company.
All right, we've got a question online, and then we'll get you next, Mackenzie. This question comes from our student groups. How do you involve student groups and cultural groups in menu planning and feedback, especially with diverse students on campus? We do have large population from the Micronesian Islands and different folks like that from all over the globe. And then the follow-up to that, so it's a two-part question. Student groups have events on campus and utilize the kitchen to showcase cultural foods. What are ways that you have utilized support students groups in events?
I want to take the second part, and maybe one of you guys take the first part. Okay. So, the second part. Okay, so in terms of like how we, Nick and I have worked together for a while, in case you can't tell. We both came over from Aramark, so it's one of the benefits of us all knowing each other within the industry. So the second part, in terms of like how do we engage students that use the kitchen, there's nothing better, and you can give the example from Greenfield, there's nothing better than inviting a student saying, we would love for you to bring your grandmother's recipe and we're going to actually produce it side by side with you so we can learn culturally the best way to do that, and now we can serve that to the student population. We'll promote it, we'll market it, and we'll engage students to make sure they come in and actually enjoying it. We do this very often, but I will let some of the others talk about like some real life examples.
Thanks, Manny. I did want to bring up, when you're talking about demographic, that's obviously not something that's uncommon to us. So a couple of our partner accounts is an education first account. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to publicly say that, but so we have 60 different demographics, nationalities represented in that one singular account. So we are very accustomed to tailoring our program to hit as many buckets as possible to make sure that we're being respectful to obviously, culturally representative food. So that's not uncommon to us. When Manny's speaking of dining service committee meetings, panel meetings, focus groups, that's really the content that we're looking for, is that how do we personalize that program to the campus community, to the student body, to the demographic. And that's one of the benefits that we have, is that we're not operating in a narrow box. We have the ability to customize and really individualize our approach to the community.
Yeah, so just to expand a little bit. So essentially, we operate 3 English First academies, which are 100% international students. And across the 3 accounts, we have 2,300 international students that rotate in and out every 6 to 8 weeks based on the program that they're attending. None of them are American. Many of them have never been exposed to Western food. So really, the onus is on us to make sure that we're providing culturally relevant food that speaks to them. As an example, it took us a while to realize that many cultures like hot boiled eggs for breakfast. That's a small example, right? It took us a while to realize that congee is a really preferred rice breakfast in the Asian community. And as we've learned more about these cultures, Phil has incorporated all of these items into our menu. So we have, especially compared to some of our competitors, a wide breadth of expertise in feeding international-only students. Not a subset of an American university, international-only students that fly here specifically for those classes and then go back home to their home countries.
Could you provide an example of a lunch menu similar to one that might be at Shemeketa?
Yeah. Who wants to do that? Phil, you.
Okay, so Shemeketa has some unique service styles. It's mostly retail based. We have everything from smash burgers, because they're popular, all the way up to sous vide chicken wings, which is a specialty of what Chef Richard did. We also have a grain bowls program that we operate, where we will rotate the specific grains, whatever they may be, you know, pearl couscous or brown rice, whatever it is, and we'll rotate the toppings on those as well. We also have weekly and monthly tasting events to this point about, I think somebody mentioned, like, how do we get feedback from the students? We love tastings because it's one-on-one feedback in the real time, right? We use those tastings and that feedback to do further menu development. But in terms of like some of the staples, I mean, we rotate, monthly with our items, and so smash burgers all the way up to sous vide chicken wings, grain bowls. We have 2 different coffee outlets where we do scratch baking. Chef Richard's making scratch croissants, which is not easy. Scratch chocolate chip cookies, a whole wide variety of items.
One thing I want to say that we didn't, I'm going to embarrass him now a little bit, but Chef Richard actually grew up in a world of Michelin star restaurants in the UK, and that is something that you do not see in a higher education environment. And I think that's important to mention out because that really ties to the scratch cooking and our overall philosophy. You know, yeah, I talked about personal touch with client relationships, but the personal touch that we have with food is really something that, 40 years in both retail restaurants and food service management, I haven't seen at this level. So that kind of like weaves itself through the entire thread of our culinary philosophy and our menu design.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, first off, I want to say I had to open it and try the almost gluten-free, gluten-friendly snack bar thing here. Wow, it's delicious. If nobody else has tried it, you might want to check it out. But then the other question I have, because I'm a big fan of doing things by scratch and using the whole chicken and a lot of that stuff that you talked about, that's what I do in my own household. And I have a household of 2 people with massive amount of food allergies, so going out and eating is very complicated. So one of my questions is, like, how are you guys going to manage the cost to keep the costs down or reasonable? Trying to buy local. I mean, all those things, I love all those things, but really, how do you do that piece of it?
That's the restaurant smart and corporate smart, right? So, I mean, there's no silver bullet. We have a pretty slick procurement department. Chef is highly involved in all of that, Chef Phil. That information gets disseminated down to the local unit level. But within any operation, food service-wise, I mean, how many times have you walked into a grocery store and you've seen watermelons for $2 right there at the front of the door? It's a loss leader. They just want you to buy that so you can purchase other items that, I don't want to use the word might be more profitable, but be a little bit more business efficient. So it's menu engineering. That's exactly what it comes down to. And the fact that we're nimble and agile, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Phil, but the fact that we're nimble and agile, tomatoes take a spike on Monday, we can react before Tuesday's menu. We don't have to go through 3 or 4 layers of approval to buy a different size tomato because it might be cost efficient. Cherry tomatoes might be favorable for this month. We might need to go to a 6x8 tomato the following month and chop them up for the salad bar. Not to only reference the salad bar, there's more healthy options than that. But it's about menu engineering and just having a smart procurement department.
All right, we'll get you up here.
So, as a student here, We're I'm part of the ag club here at EOU, and a couple weeks ago we went on a field trip. And through Sodexo, the way that they're set up with the school, we have to order our lunches through Sodexo. We can't go, get a meal. So we order our lunches, $10 or $12 a pop, and we sit down for lunch, we open them up. We got a sandwich, very soft apple, you bite into, and it's just no crunch to it. And I mean, about this big of an apple, and some of them grandma's cookies, You open up
So
the
it's like the fire festival, basically, is what you're saying?
yeah.
Got it,
You
okay.
open up the sandwich and you got 2 little pieces of meat.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is, when it comes to stuff like that, if you guys have the similar deal set up with a school where you got to buy through you guys, how are you going to make it look like we're not trapped by trying to buy food through you guys, and
Okay.
more that we want to, and we're excited, yeah, we get lunch through you guys.
So, I don't know if anybody else has, but I've got first of all, when it comes to catering, because that would sort of fall under catering, right? It's outside of the normal. I don't want exclusivity, right? I want to earn your business. And the last thing I want to do, especially in a small town, is feel that local purveyors, that, we're sort of impeding on their potential business. So, my philosophy is let us get on campus, give us a shot, let us earn the right for your business. If we do, wonderful. If not, give me some feedback. We can sort of determine what the problems were, and we'll fix it. It all goes back to us being small, nimble, agile, and entrepreneurial. On a college campus, and I don't want to keep on saying restaurant smart, corporate smart, but it's a student-based experience. And if we're not doing right by the students, then we're not doing right by the institution, we're not doing right by Genuine Foods, we're not doing right by the operators on campus. So our focus is the students. If that's a concern, we address it up front, but overall, in terms of catering, I don't want to be exclusive. I want to earn the right for your business.
Hi. I have a question here asking how you would best serve student athletes who require higher protein, along with their irregular training schedules.
Very, very common problem, right? Because dining halls always close before practice gets out. And you go to a performing arts school and dancers are still performing and actors are still on stage. They don't get the opportunity to participate. Similar to labor, it's a challenge that just needs to be addressed. So I'll let Phil talk to maybe specifically about performance-based nutrition. Well, I'll mention 2 things. There are lots of automated solutions, and I'm not talking vending machines. People call them vending machines, but there are automated solutions that provide both hot and cold food fresh after hours that don't need to be manned. For those of you that fly frequently, maybe you go through airports, you see these coolers that have like beautiful sandwiches and salads that are sort of locked with a credit card reader, and those credit card readers can take flex dollars, so they can use university cash as part of your meal plan. That's one option, and that doesn't increase any costs. There are hot food machines out there where you have the ability of getting, maybe not for an athlete, but a hot chocolate molten lava cake, a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, hot dogs, penne alla vodka, penne Alfredo. So these capabilities exist. We partner with all of these companies. We actually partner with Alan Campbell. I don't know, for those of you who know Alan Campbell, and I'm not a football guy, so excuse me if I'm saying a bad word, but Tom Brady's personal chef was Alan Campbell. And he was the individual that was really responsible for getting his longevity. So we partner with him for performance-based nutrition for athletes on campus. So if it's a real major concern, what happens is we will then consult with Alan, put together a program. Maybe what we're doing is we're coming up with food-based items that we're going to store in these automated solutions that the athletes have access to. You want to add anything, Phil?
I think in terms of the actual programming, though, this goes back to us learning who these specific groups are and what the needs are, and not necessarily reworking our program, but customizing our programming to meet their needs specifically. So we do, yes, very common problem. We have several active places where athletes make up a huge percentage of the student population there. So we've, the gentleman in the back mentioned a version of a pack out, right? So we've created pack out menus and other sub menus to specifically give these folks what they need.
Great. Other questions? Well, I'll jump in on a piggyback earlier. We're talking about cooking from scratch and all the fun intricacies that come with that. But in terms of production on the dining line, and you need something quick out there, what are your kind of go-tos for making sure that you've got that backup when you got a rush that you weren't expecting and that you weren't necessarily prepared for?
That is a great question. That means Chef Rich is running in the back and working hard. But so I'll take that in a couple of different ways, Manny. I don't know if you have anything, but okay. We're very organized with our approach in what we call production. And we track everything that we produce, and we use those tracking mechanisms to essentially forecast what we are going to produce. Every so often, however, there are the anomalies when people come in the back. Or come in and, kind of surprise us, so to speak. So in terms of that, we train our folks to be ready for those surprises, right? In some cases I've seen where we've got a list of what we call quick fire items that we can produce very quickly, and it's a 10-item list, like, hey, if you get 50 people rushing in, you've got no food, you're going to make one of these items depending on what you've got in the refrigerator, and it's planned out and it's ready to go. I would say we're actually pretty fortunate with our culinary skill across the board to this point that hasn't really been much of a problem, so to speak, but we train our folks to be ready for it.
Two other points. Number one is batch cooking. So batch cooking gives us the ability to sort of par cook some items and very quickly be able to put out, I'll just use as an example, let's say it's penne Alfredo. We'll have we'll have portions of that dish pre-cooked and ready to go that we're cooking right before service. And then as we get that rush come in, it's a matter of just reheating that sauce, dropping the pasta in, and getting it back on the station. So batch cooking is important with that. My question to you before I get to my second point is that a problem on campus?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we're a small campus, and so there are some nights where we fluctuate, 50 people, and they're like, we weren't expecting that group to actually eat tonight, and they came in, and now we gotta figure that out real quick. So yeah, we do see that. The lunchtime, it can happen most frequently, but even at the dinner times and even at breakfast, we can see spikes that they're anomalies. They just come out of nowhere. Like, we don't know what happened. Maybe it was the rain this morning that everybody felt like they wanted to go get breakfast. I don't know, but yeah, we do see that.
So that's an interesting point. I was going to bring that up. There are trends and patterns. For me, feeding at the higher education level is highly predictable because it's wholly dependent on the class schedule. And once you're in tune with the class schedule, you can kind of nail in 90% of your production. Mm-hmm. And so there's got to be a partnership between the provost or whoever's writing the academic calendar and the schedules with our food service director so we understand when the rushes are. So our batch cooking is based on when classes are expected to come out. That was just an interesting point because normally it's one of the, especially in a residential dining hall, it's one of the most predictable meal periods that at least I've ever experienced. But I mean, Phil kind of answered it. Batch cooking is a big part of it. We don't really have that issue.
One thing, I don't think we did a very good job of explaining that, but one thing that makes Genuine unique is that we only focus on middle market and smaller campuses. So we will not do an Oregon University that is 10, 20 times the size. So we're way more experienced in these small schools, small to medium schools that have that type of variation. And again, by being that flat organization, if you see that, you will have Manny's number, and you'll be like, hey, we ran out of so-and-so today, and you'll be allowed to text him personally. And then he'll call Phil and the director, and we'll figure it out right away. Like, it's not like, again, these large companies with the 27 layers, I believe you mentioned, that you have to get to make a change. So that is one thing that is extremely unique to us. And somebody earlier mentioned 3 company specific, where that's going to continue to happen, because again, this would be a small school for them where you won't get as much attention from our leadership and on a hyper focus. So yeah, you guys may consider yourself a small campus, but you would be a very important campus to us because yes, you're our first Eastern Oregon school, but we don't want it to be the last one. So that would be extremely important to us to get that right. And again, so we're experienced on it, and we will be focused on it.
Great. Other questions? All right. Mr. Franks.
Yeah, so during the presentation, you talked a decent amount about food boredom and the attempts you would make to combat that in the dining hall experience. Can we expect to see similar efforts made in Max Grill? Like, should we be expecting to see variations depending on the day or the week? Will there be different items available, that sort of thing?
I'll talk quickly and then, okay. So so Max Grill, first of all, the name can stay, the core concept itself stays. Behind the scenes, the menu that we would support it comes from our buddies Gourmet Burgers, which is highly acceptable on student campuses. It's smash burgers, it's wings, it's loaded fries. But then every night during late night, as part of that meal swipe equivalency that's available to students, we will add additional retail menu items on based on certain concepts. So let's say week 1, you've got sort of the core concept of Max Grills, Buddy's Burgers, but then you're also going to have 3 to 5 menu items from our cheese pull menu. The following week, same concept, but now instead of cheese pull, you're going to have 3 to 5 menu items available from Sabrosa. So every single week, there's going to be a different concept that's rotated in there. And that doesn't include monthly promotions and limited time offerings that we offer in retail locations. So it's not just the residence hall, it's retail also. We keep it fresh. And we do Genuine Loves through retail as well, as Bob said.
All right, I'll grab one and then we'll get Mackenzie. This question comes, well, kind of as a follow-up. You've spoken at length about how important the training is. And so for our line cooks and our folks that are on the front line cooking, what kind of a training should they expect?
In short, tons. So obviously we've got written resources, video resources, all those kinds of things. But in transitions for new accounts and opportunities, I'll be here, right? So one-on-one training. And if we do bring internal candidates or whatever, they're familiar with our programming. So more one-on-one training from them as well. And that's my favorite part, and I think our favorite part, working in the culinary field, specifically with Genuine, is we are we're communicative, we talk often. Training occurs pretty much every time we meet. We're learning something new, we're hammering on something that we want to do, a new standard or an old standard that needs to be sort of upkept. So I think training, for me, is one of those things that's always ongoing. There's not a start and a stop. Training occurs from the moment we start operating an account until whenever we aren't. And that's really kind of the focus of how we operate culinarily.
Another thing that's really unique about Genuine Foods is, I may be wearing a suit, but I've worked on site for a long time, and actually I've washed hundreds of thousands of dishes. So all of us up here are the people that you will actually see. So if awarded your partnership, we will be here frequently, and we've all worked at universities. We all have culinary training. We didn't even mention it, but he's also a trained chef that has a degree. So we are very culinary focused. So again, it's not just, I know, again, I'm wearing a suit, but when you see me on a normal day, I won't be wearing this. I'll have my apron on, and so will everybody else. So I think that's one thing that, again, that is different us. We're not just the business people. We are the restaurant and the operations people who have been on site. We know how difficult it is to manage a college and a university. So our team is kind of built around that aspect. So we're not just MBAs. Nothing wrong with that, but we also have on-site, hands-on experience, basically at every level of our organization, including our CEO, who owned and ran a 3-star restaurant in New York. So, very culinary focused. So, good question, and something that gets forgotten, I think. And it's hard to say on paper.
Okay, I have a question. How will you manage the pre-athletic events, particularly for the non-students, so like the tailgating?
Is that currently managed by the incumbent? So we can do that a multitude of ways. So sometimes we'll support that just in terms of procurement, right? So sometimes we can get better pricing on some of those larger volume items, burgers, rolls, logs of cheese. So we can support it through procurement. If there was an opportunity or if there was no budgetary restriction, we could actually be the people that are on site, cooking on the grill for those students that are tailgating. That's going to be highly dependent on the expected relationship with that, with the university. But it's really, the world is your oyster when it comes to that. We can do anything.
Okay, so I thought of another question. There's days that are just crazy, and you don't have time to wait on Max Grill. You just want to go through the cafeteria, grab something, bring it back to your office. Is that something that you guys help staff and faculty do with to-go boxes and things like that? Or is that a no-no?
No such thing as a no-no when it comes to hospitality. So are you essentially talking about like a grab-and-go program?
Not even really a grab and go, because I have so many food allergies that most of the time I can't eat grab and go. It's, I want to go through the salad bar myself, get the things that I can eat, put it in a box, and bring it back with me.
Oh, so you're talking about to go from Mountie Cafe?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no reason why we wouldn't allow that. That to me, that's just hospitality 101. Right?
Okay.
I'm not going to be corporate smart and say, no, you can't do that because that doesn't align with my food cost. I'd rather make you happy and have you come back and tell your friends how great of an experience you had.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. What's that? Yeah, we would totally implement a full grab-and-go program. There's room for it on every campus.
Great. Any other questions? If y'all need to go, we understand too. Just make sure you do your feedback forms. We appreciate that. on the
Take
way
as
out.
much food as possible so we don't have to bring it back with us, please.
And while we're here, I guess what I'll do is I'll talk to the folks online too. If anybody that wants to stop by the Office of Residence Life and pick up some of these extra packages, we'll be handing those out to students and staff or faculty that want those. Come on by for those. I also wanted to take, before everybody gets out, let's go ahead and give them a round of applause for their presentation. Thank you so much. It takes a tremendous amount of work to put together a proposal and come onto site and to do all that. So we recognize the amount of time and energy that you all put into this. And your 200-plus page proposal, I know took a lot of work. So thank you so much for that. We appreciate that. Also want to take this opportunity to thank Haley, MJ, Jamie, and Sandra, who are here, and Marcy, who we believe is online. They are working with our dining services work group to kind of help inform and gather information from our students and faculty and staff. It's been very important to us since day one to try and capture as much data from across campus and our community to make sure that we make informed decisions. So again, thank you for everybody and everybody that participated in our online survey. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. And one more thing. Okay, and we're going to send out a review for anybody that wants to send in a review on Genuine Foods. So with that, we'll do a final round of applause, and thank you so much for coming out.